And yes, I am calling to task every cisgendered straight white man. I'm going to be wildly woke.
Hi, I'm so excited for you to listen to today's episode. Melanie and I get to chat with Katelin Holloway, a founding partner at investing firm 776. Before that, chief people officer at iconic companies like Reddit. We cover a lot in this episode. We get Katelin's take on my very spicy question of why investors do not fund women. We talk about whether AI is going to kill middle managers, talent, recruiters, and just like AI in general. But Katelin's got a great take on that, as well as has this rebrand from HR to people ops really worked. While I've got you, I would love to call out that you can subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. We'd love for you to do that. It really helps us out. And this podcast is brought to you by Athena, the company that Melanie and I work for. We do modern compliance solutions for modern people leaders. Hope you really enjoy the episode. Thanks.
I didn't go to school to be EHR. I did not get my master's in, any sort of human development, behavioral science, any of that stuff. And so I think that I actually have always been the perfect candidate for the archetypical HR role. And given that I didn't choose to be in the role initially, like I've never, I make the joke, like, who really wants to be an HR lady? Like, it's like
Melanie
no one
makes
ever
this
grows
joke
up.
too, thankfully. So you're not dashing her
You are
great
not
hopes
alone.
from being, a 5-year-old
Most
girl.
people did not choose this. They kind of fell into it. Maybe couldn't find something better, you know.
Totally.
But we made it our own.
I was gonna say, I think it's the difference between it's like being a cat lady. Like, not many people grow up and are like, I want to be a cat lady. But sometimes you become a cat lady.
Do you know Melanie is a cat lady?
No, but I'm saying it's not a bad thing. This is what I'm trying to say.
I think it's a bad thing. I always give Melanie a hard time.
Oh, this is great. Poor Katelin. We're not letting her finish any sentences. Sorry. Tell your story.
These are best. They're conversations is what we get to call them. It's just interrupting.
Exactly. And I realize that I have some hot takes here, but I don't think that there's really I think there are young girls who are like, I want to be a cat lady or a horse lady, right? And I think that there are older women who are more mature in their career who are like, this is like my space and my calling. Traditional. I'm talking about traditional HR, just to be clear. And then becoming like a cat lady. No, to become a cat. I see your cat too. I love this very much.
Oh, there are several, Katelin.
Several.
There were several.
See? But did you choose to be a cat lady or did the cats find you, right?
I wanted dogs, but my commute was too long. I couldn't leave the poor dog alone for, 12 plus hours a day.
Reddit was my final destination in my 10-year HR career. And it was absolutely height of that phase of my life in terms of the work I was enabled to do, in terms of the executive partnership I had across the board, across the functions, and board support.
I really struggled when Ann and I were interviewing for Melanie's role. Like, Candy, we really struggled because there were a lot of folks who felt to HR, which I know is like an absurd thing. It's like, you posted an HR role.
Right.
And I feel like, yes, there's okay, we called ours people, which I think sort of signals it's something different. But I think there also are a lot of people who do the exact same thing and they just call themselves a people leader, but they are the same. That was just a pretty loose rebrand. And so and then add to all of it, this whole AI stuff really making me think if your job is payroll and anything that can be automated, I just I don't know. I don't see the vision. Melanie's like, why are you ruining my LinkedIn follower count by just constantly talking about HR negatively? And I don't mean that, because I do actually think when Melanie
no, don't try to fix it, Roxanne. It makes me look better by comparison.
To lean in, because you're like, I have to work with a CEO who doesn't appreciate what I do.
Yeah.
The Melanie was like, hey, what HR metrics do boards care about? And I was like, not a one in my founder perspective. They care about the growth number. They care about the spend number. But what's interesting is there's a ton of people things, literally all people things ladder up into those two numbers.
I think you're pulling at a good thread here, which is let's split track here. There's the spectrum of HR folk, right? There is the very trad HR, they're crossing T's, dotting I's, making sure that records are in order and that everything is compliant and it's going to pass the white glove test from corporate, right? That is typically where I see that is in public companies, right? When there's a lot more scrutiny, these organizations are a lot larger. And they're, it's not that large organizations can't be more creative within
But
their
you need
policies and whatnot.
guardrails. With more to lose, you need I mean, we literally are a
Exactly.
compliance company. I totally, but then I mean, I guess maybe to push you, you see a company like Netflix that seems to maintain more of this people ethos, as it were, well past, scale.
But are they? This is
I
where
hope
I would
so.
challenge you. No,
Mm.
this is where I would challenge that conception because
Yeah.
and that deck, the infamous deck that really was kind of the catalyst of moving from that HR backroom to the HR boardroom. Here is a vision statement. Here is a mission statement. This is how we're shifting our values. All of that is how old now?
Yeah.
Between 15 and 20 years old. That HR leader has since moved on
Yep.
many years. And if you actually read that deck, one, I have all the love in the world for that deck because, like I said, I think it was a catalyst for something pretty phenomenal.
Sorry, the cat.
I love it. It looks like we've got
Carry
Simba
on.
walking through the back here. It's great. But I think that the thing that people miss with the Netflix deck is if you actually read the words, it is not necessarily people focused or employee forward.
Mm.
What it is clear. What it is it's articulating who they are and who they are not. If you have ever interviewed anybody from Netflix, you will learn several things. One of which, and this has been consistent regardless of the HR leader in-house, but you will learn that Netflix will work you to death. They drive their team super hard, work their fingers to the bone. The average tenure is, I think, less than 18 months, but they will pay you 150% to market. And so they have complete clarity of who they are. And that is actually the thing that employees and candidates love most about it. It's not because they have snacks galore and that they have great work-life balance and they have all these super inclusive policies.
It's that you didn't lie to me. It's that you didn't BS that we're a family. Then why did I get fired? And we're a
Totally.
Yeah.
There is no bones about it. And honestly, to bring this full circle, when I left Reddit, I was they replaced me with a woman by the name of Nellie Peshkoff, who is a phenomenal HR leader who came from Netflix.
First off, I'll say, Katelin, I love that you don't have the traditional HR background, having studied org design or whatever, because I actually find that is what I think makes people leaders capable of being more innovative and having low ego, right? I've never been offended when Roxanne asks me, why are we doing that? That feels like a waste of time. You know what? That's a great question. Why am I doing that? I'm not sure.
Right?
Let me rethink that. So I think that's great. And then, yeah, to the point of what is effective people leading or people strategy, I think it's exactly what Roxanne said. And I know gimmicky buzzwords, all the stuff, but I do really like the idea of being sort of chief performance officer. My job is just to figure out how I can get the highest performance out of our employees, whether that be through the Elon Musk approach or whether that be through a family approach, right? We have to figure out what is right for our business. But I'm a really big fan of just thinking, how can I help drive performance in whatever form that may come? And most times it's not, the pizza party or, whatever perks. Most times employees want more money over perks is what I find.
Yeah.
Totally.
And autonomy and better bosses and higher talent density.
Yeah.
Or at least the type of people that the type of team that I think would be most interested in recruiting and maintaining.
I think that oftentimes HR leaders are not invited into boardrooms. And so there's an education of hey, this is why it might be prudent to have this perspective represented for these really important conversations and decisions. And so, I think Reddit is a great example where I was invited in my tenure there. I went to every single board meeting. And so part of that was partnership with my executive leadership team. And another part of that was board education. And so, for example, I think that oftentimes many people mistake our role. And this is where you were going, Melanie, with like, no, I actually focus on performance, right? And every HR leader kind of has the things that they believe to be the highest levers to drive those outcomes. And I think that oftentimes board members, investors will get confused and think like, oh, you're here to hire talent. You're here to make sure
Mm.
that you're retaining that talent. Yeah, that's a part of our gig, because now they just assume like, okay, your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted, right? Which is why HR of yore is like out.
I have perhaps a bit of an awkward question.
Oh, I
Oh,
love
yeah.
awkward.
Oh, go
It
hard,
it's
Melanie.
it's
Dig
a bit
in.
of a pivot, but
Are your
I
claws out?
oh my
Get
claws.
it?
Oh God, with the cat jokes. Oh gosh.
Sorry,
Okay.
it's the last one. It's the last
Get
one.
it's fine. I'm getting back in the zone. Um, what goes through my mind is I'm hearing you and I'm excited and I'm interested. And also I want to acknowledge that a couple of years ago, I actually got very exhausted of the whole HR thing. I was kind of like, I don't know if HR is for me long term. And I actually
Yeah.
talked to Roxanne about this too. I was like, I don't know how much more of this I've
Yeah.
got in me.
Mm.
And I was in the very fortunate position of working at a company that is HR tech, which means that I had this unique opportunity to step into the marketing side of things. And at the same time, I wasn't having to fight for some of the things that you were describing here, where it's like, how do you defend? Roxanne was the one driving me, being like, Melanie, I need you more involved on the sales side of things. I need you to better understand what the right terms are. I need you to get involved in commission conversations. And that supercharged and energized me because now I had all these new outlets that I hadn't had before. I'm curious to know because if I heard you correctly, you also had a similar sort of like 10-year HR tenure, and then you switched into advisor land, right? And then you switched into, board member land. I'm curious to know, one, is the HR career actually one that can sustainably hold someone's interest for longer than a decade? Because that's about when I ran out of steam as well. And
Yeah.
and if not, why? And what should people do about it? Because it sounds like you also were like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna do advisor stuff now. Goodbye.
Yeah. It's not awkward at all. And actually, this is a big area of passion for me. Because I've had so many jobs in my life, y'all. Like I've worked in so many different industries, and as I got older and had more experience, I was trying to find that throughput of like, why, like, how do I explain myself and like what I bring to the table.
Mhm.
And when I found HR, or rather when HR found me, it felt like the clouds parted, and I for the first time felt like I could take a full deep breath, and I found a true identity in being in that function. And finally I was like, I wish someone had told me that this existed before, but it just didn't. Again, we've talked about, legacy HR and the HR of today. And I think that we're at another kind of pivot point, or we're passing through another pretty significant milestone era. I was searching for a way to do what I loved more. It was like I was trying to squeeze too much Play-Doh out of a really tiny little hole. And that is a gross way of describing it. But I had so much I wanted to put into it. And what I discovered was I had started angel investing kind of early in my HR career, not because I had money, I didn't, but because I had time, effort, energy, and passion around HR tech. And so I started putting initially just my elbow grease and offering my time to these young companies who were building tools to help make my team more efficient. So like I was like, heck yeah, I'm going to spend my time with you. Heck yeah, I'm going to introduce you to people in my network who are going to buy your product because I need this. I know they need this. And through that I can do the higher level work, the more strategic work that I am so passionate about. So it was really symbiotic. Turns out at the time HR was going through this massive unbundling phase, and so there were all of these young companies that were building and growing, and it was so exciting, and I loved those founders and I loved working with those founders. And then, years go by and suddenly you go through a rebundling. And so these companies are now getting acquired by one another, or they're rolling up into a bigger organization, a more legacy HR tech company. And suddenly I started making money from nothing. I should just put this back into the market, right? I should put it into things other things I think should exist in the world. And so I call myself an accidental investor too, because I started investing in things like climate tech and women's health. And I started researching and getting interested in different deep tech things. And so I started putting this money back into the world because it was free, right? And Then I got to meet a whole different host of founders who were building different types of products. And I became deeply passionate about supporting that founder network in a way where I still maintained my day job and I still spent 99% of my time focused on growing my own organization. But I had this little outlet for my creative thoughts. I had this little outlet where I could go and play and give advice at that really, really early stage of that 0 to 1 building where I'm like, hey, I know someone great for that role. Or, oh, have you considered doing this? Or you should totally go to this conference. I mean, little bits of advice that people could take or leave. It didn't matter to me, but my day job didn't depend on it. And so like, I think that I was able to reduce my burnout by having this outlet to do other things. And then in that, by the time I got to the end of my charge and run at Reddit, I was like, but if I could just do that full time,
Mm.
that sounds cool. And in that, I'm actually able to impact more than one organization at a time. I think that burnout in HR comes from doing the same thing every single day, day in, day out. And I will give you all of the grace in the world, Melanie, because what has occurred in the last 5 years is not normal.
Oof.
COVID is not normal. This
Wild.
geopolitical world we're living in, not normal. This is not, if I look at the first, if we look at the last decade, the first 5 years are wildly different
Yeah.
than the 5 years we're living in. And we have seen the pendulum swing and things that are, the unprecedented blah, blah, blah. Like, that is where the burnout comes from, is from having to do very hard things with very limited information and trying to successfully lead a group of humans who are emotionally distraught, living through collective trauma, and frankly, don't know which way is up. And our work-life balance that used to exist, well, then balance is a debatable word, but the world and our work, not even our personal selves, the world and our work have become so deeply entangled and intertwined. It is not your job to solve the world's problems. It is not, but that is what is being asked of HR leaders today.
You're an investor. I think you're phenomenal. But let's just call a spade a spade. Investors do not fund women founders. What's the why? Not
What's
you
the why?
personally,
I was-
776, not them,
Yeah.
but like
Ooh.
and it's gotten worse. It was a bad number and it got worse.
Oh, I know.
Roxanne,
I-
there wasn't even a lead up there. You
It
just
was.
No.
I just
boom,
wanted,
dropped it.
I wanted to
Yeah.
just go for it. It's like,
Great.
shoot my shot. Caitlin's like, oh, I hear the cat calling. I gotta go.
Well,
my cat
conveniently-
is scratching at the door.
Conveniently, both my cats are gone right now. I'm just saying.
What do you
Because
got,
that's a
Katelin?
spicy question.
Well,
No,
spicy.
I will take this one head on because it is definitely a personal bone that I have to pick. It's a big part of why I personally made the transition from HR leader to investor. I think that if you look at who are the demographics of who are writing checks, that's your answer. There are not, for as much as there are not people that look like you, meaning women in founder positions and CEO roles who are not getting the checks, there are even fewer people that look like me writing checks. And so that is step one. And yes, I am calling to task every cisgendered straight white man. I'm going to be wildly woke. We can tag it all up on Twitter and say, we have old white men writing checks into their closed networks. They do not open, they do not have open applications for breaking into investing. The path to getting into investing is wildly opaque unless you grow up in the ranks and do the standard, top 5 business schools to graduate from, and your dad or grandpa, had the same country club or was in the same fraternity. It is not happening down. It's central casting, full stop, at the investor level. And so if you don't have, if investors are relying on their closed networks to fund the next generation of companies and their networks look like them, it's not going to happen. There is a whole new generation of venture capitalists who are building the VC firms of the future. And sadly, it's a 10-year life cycle because especially for early stage investing. And so for us to start seeing the impacts of that and to start seeing those successful founders who, again, don't look like they're from central casting, it's going to be a minute for those to kind of rise to the surface. And I will not put lipstick on a pig here. Like, the given the current administration and the narrative around, all of the ways in which we were building and working towards that were aspirational around building more inclusive communities, having more focus on, that values alignment of, heaven forbid, building a team that looks like the world in which, we live, that is very out of fashion right now. It is not cool or fashionable, whereas it was more in vogue to do that, even 4 years ago, and it is not today, sadly. But I do think that there are really good people out there fighting the good fight. And so, like, I'll call out Hustle Fund. I'll call out, I think Harlem Capital is doing a phenomenal job. I think that there are different investing partners as individuals where even, they might be going against the grain within their own legacy
Yeah.
firms, but there are people out there having these conversations. And so I don't think it's a lost cause. But I do think that we're a bit in the dumps right now. And it's a really disappointing, frustrating place to be.
What's interesting to me, quick follow-up question is I would imagine investors, it's not about who they like or don't like. They're investing because they want to make money. It's not like, oh,
Yeah.
I like guys more, so I'm going to invest in guys more. If a woman comes along and you're going to make me more money, I will invest in you. Would be my
But you
my
don't know
assumption.
that. That's, I think,
So
the biggest.
So I think that's what I'm trying to understand is like, what do you think the underlying issue is? Do you think it's like they actually think that women are less effective at building companies? They literally just don't know enough women to even see what options are out there? Like, what do you think is the underlying issue in addition to, hey, women just aren't the ones signing the checks?
There are so many. It's one, the networks don't look the same. They don't reflect the same. So like the pipeline of qualified, female founders is low given their networks, not given the amount of women who are out there and anxious to build and just
So
need some
they
great
they, they have
backing.
enough men to choose from that they don't need to.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. The view
I
is,
also
the best.
think, like, this is my, like, super spicy take. They're not wrong. Like, they make a lot of money investing in men. So if you're like, I would
Yes.
like to keep
Yeah.
making a lot of money, it's
Yeah.
not broken. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
I guess you could sort of argue like the venture model is a little broken, but like, but whatever, put that aside. Like, if you're
Yeah.
like, what are the top 10 most iconic companies that have been founded in the past? Doesn't matter the time frame.
Right.
Without seeing the list, will guarantee you they were all founded by men. And I
Yep.
think it's like a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy that has like
Right.
so many different components. But to include, like, I think I was really bad at pitching early on. And I think there's a huge gender
Yes.
component to that. And
Well,
I don't
you
say
also
it
are
as
held
like
to
women are bad pitching, but just
no.
like that's like one. Yeah.
You're held to a higher standard. Like this is the unconscious bias bit of this that makes it really terrible, which is, the networks are not representative. Then two, if a female founder does get in front of these folks, they're going to hire that because it does not look like their normal pathway. They are going to hold you to a higher standard, and so your pitch has to be far more compelling. I've done so much homework on this where I look at pitch decks and the companies that have been funded based on metrics alone. You make it blind or opaque side by side
Mhm.
comparison. And the expectations for a female founder to go from a seed to a series A are different than the metrics needed, just objectively are
Yeah, I
different
would believe that.
than the ones needed. And so like it's part of it is upskilling. And so making sure that our founders, so something that we do at the firm is we run a workshop called Reverse Engineering Your Fundraise. Every
Mm.
founder gets it regardless of their background or how well their business is doing. If we know that if you have 12 months or less of runway, we're going to host this workshop with you and we are going to give you the tools and the skills to say, we're going to run you through it. We're going to say, hey, give us your practice pitch. We're going to give you notes to make sure that you have it, because oftentimes founders want to build businesses because they want to solve a really hard problem. They don't do it because they want to be great at fundraising. That is just
Totally.
not why you get into the business you're doing. So you're not wrong. And it sucks.
Does kind of suck. It's one of those things when you start digging into it, you're just like, oh, I'm going to close that box. Just
But
gonna
if
build
you
my business.
I was gonna say, but like it's crazy because if you look at so like
Mm.
yeah, you pull the fortune lists and the Fortune 50 and you look at the demographics, it's easy to say like, oh well, those are mostly men or all men or whatever the stat is. But the reality is if you actually look at like the performance of companies, and you look then, it's similar to government. You look at the countries that have been led by women, their performance is actually better. So for me and for Alexis, like it feels like a no-brainer where you're like, Hey, the data's there. Like, y'all are just ignoring it. Like, what a great competitive advantage for us.
Mm.
Because if you don't get it and it's too hard to wrap your little brain around, like, awesome, I'll take those pitches all day. So look at performance.
We'll say the same ones that I gave to Heather around like, do you think AI is going to kill middle management? Right. So like everyone believes that each manager now can have a bigger and bigger span of control. I feel like the great leaders in tech are all bragging about how they have 87,000 direct reports. Middle
Oh,
managers, so they
what?
dead.
Why stop at middle managers, Roxanne?
All managers.
You just tagged me in an article that was like, "Do we even need recruiters? Because AI is doing
Oh,
it
that was a
better."
good one too. Okay, or we can go that direction. So there was an AI study that was released that was like AI recruiters, which, as a side note, I think is still like not compliant with most state regulations, but whatever. Actually selected better call center representatives as defined by like their performance, their tenure, blah blah blah, than human
Right.
recruiters. So you can take either. Our middle manager's dead, our recruiter's dead, or both.
Okay. I'll tackle it as a holistic AI question here.
Yeah.
So one, I think that sadly, investors are overestimating the impact of technology within organizations today. Do I think that they are underestimating or overestimating it long-term big picture, decade from now? Absolutely not. I think that is something that we should be thinking about and plotting towards. However, because none of them are really operators, they don't know. They are both overestimating their own portfolio companies. So the AI companies that are building things, they are overestimating those deliverables and the impact that can have. But the real part of overestimation is cultural shift and change. And so, because they're overestimating the technology and the impact, because they've never built anything in their lives, so sorry, not sorry, they don't understand that, like, you can't just walk in tomorrow as the leader of an organization and say, hey, we're going to bring in these 5 tools and therefore we're going to lay off half the company. And like the amount of investors I hear from even within our own portfolio from other investors on the cap table that are giving like the most absolutely terrible advice to our founders
I
saying
feel
like
like Melanie and I are smiling because even like we did not do something that absurd, but we stumbled with this, right? On a small, like we did not walk into our company and be like, we're firing everybody and replacing all with bots tomorrow. And we had a similar, like the rollout was not flawless. So
because
like,
the
yeah.
technology isn't there and culturally it is a
It
progression,
takes a
right?
minute. It like takes a minute to get
Yes.
comfortable with it. And like, what does it mean for a salesperson versus a CS person versus an HR person? I think you're like spot on that. I mean, I even saw Duolingo's CEO yesterday, kind of not walked back, but had to be like, okay, what I meant by my memo about us being AI first.
Yes.
Like, I feel like you've seen a lot of this like splash and then like, what I meant to say was, and I don't blame the
Totally.
CEOs at all. This is like
No.
really, really like I got it
It's
wrong.
I was but
Yeah,
like also it's getting breathed down our necks,
100%.
by investors, by on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days. Like all of these like thought leaders are coming out saying, "When's the next one person $1 billion company?" They
Yeah.
are not wrong, but two distinct things are occurring there for me. One, that company is going to be a brand new company. That is not going to be a legacy company or a
Mm.
company who has been building even in the last 2 years to go
'Cause you don't
from
have all that
100 people down to
debt
1.
and yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of the AI first companies that are going to be doing less with more that are small are going to be companies that were started in the not even in the last 6 months, probably in the next 6 months. And then 2, I think that because everyone has overestimated the power of the technology in hand that companies can adopt, I think that we're going through, I think what we should really be focusing on is learning and development. So, what we should be
Mm.
focusing on is not implementing a new tool and reducing our workforce by X% in the next quarter or 2 quarters. It's how do we onboard new technology and understand? I mean, I'm a compliance junkie. Like, how does this fit within our own set of rules that are needed for our company to be successful? And then
Yeah.
how do we empower our leaders to adopt it in a way that is organic and appropriate for their function of the business? And I think that the people who are not going to make it, and there are definitely a handful. I don't think it's a blanket middle managers or recruiters. I think it is the people who are unwilling
Or
to
Melanie.
adopt technology.
It's not Melanie,
Yes,
to clarify.
it's
Melanie
Melanie's
is safe.
cats. Melanie's cats
Melanie's
first
cats,
to be
yes.
automated. We need cat bots today.
Oh my God,
I'm okay
I would
with
love
this.
that if there was like a pause button. Just okay. No bad ideas in a brainstorm. Next
No,
$1 billion
no
idea.
litter boxes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, no,
Sorry,
I
Katelin.
think the people
Okay,
losing
I
their
love that.
jobs.
That's totally a much more nuanced approach, both of like the call it like operational baggage of like actually implementing, something, and then the impact is like likely not just to be like it's all X function. That makes total sense. Okay. Katelin, thank you so much for walking us through what was very characteristic for Melanie and I, a wide-ranging conversation. You rolled with punches, both like sort of literal me being like, why fund women, and less intense. And you did it with grace. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. It was so wonderful to spend time with both of you live in this way. So thank you again for the inclusion.
I've been waiting my whole life to say this. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and follow us on LinkedIn, because that's the only social media platform where we hang out.